Yo everybody, we are back here again today for another exciting video. Now this video is going to be quite a bit different than, the kind of content we're used to on this channel, but I say it in my videos all the time, this channel is just kind of me interest barfing my way through, my life cycle. So a lot of gaming, a lot of, a bunch of other stuff, hockey card openings occasionally. Apparently today we're doing something entirely different. But something that I think I'd like to keep up doing on the channel, and that I would like to maybe get a little bit better at. But so for those of you that don't know, I am a huge Walking Dead fan, and I believe it's this Sunday. This Sunday or next Sunday, they will be releasing the final episode of the newest season, and also they are releasing a brand new Walking Dead series called Walking Dead: A World Beyond. And so I actually watched the episode early. So I'm going to kind of, run through what happens in the episode. So from here on out, if you haven't seen it or you plan on watching it, spoiler alert, I'll probably maybe try to flash something up on the screen or whatever, but just so you guys can audibly hear, from pretty much here on out, there's probably a good chance there's going to be spoilers for this, the first premiere pilot episode, or whatever you want to call it. So, pretty much what's going to happen is I'm going to give kind of an overview of the episode, weigh in my opinion every once in a while, and then do kind of a lengthier talk about how I feel about it, and, probably a rating out of 10 at the end. So, it's kind of nice not having a controller in my hand. I can, hand motion and do all these fun other things. But, yeah, so the episode actually opens up, and if you see me looking down, it's because I wrote myself, a couple, jotted down notes to make sure that I stayed on kind of on task here, and that I don't kind of go off on a complete tangent that makes no sense like I just did. So the episode kind of opens, it's an interesting looking community, based in a university campus, and you see people kind of loading up into some kind of a school, like a sport team bus, or a kind of like a tour bus almost, the luggage underneath, and then passenger seating up top and all that. So that kind of opens up like that, and then that you kind of see them ship out in sort of like a convoy. There's one Jeep and then the bus kind of behind it. So this is where you meet 3 or 4 of the main characters already at this point. You meet Iris and Hope, who I believe are kind of, the center of the story. At least they seem to be right now. Then you meet Silas as well, and also Huck. Oh, there's 5 actually, and somebody named Felix. And these are all players, or not players, but people that seem to have an impact on the story, at least from what I can tell in this first episode. So, they're kind of on this little tour bus, and, they kind of go and do their thing, and they go to this little, landing site, and at this landing site, you see something that actually kind of shocked me, because I didn't watch, any of the trailers on The World Beyond or anything, which I know, being a Walking Dead fan, is probably bad, but I just wanted to not, and kind of see for myself what it was going to be like, so that I didn't have any negative biases going into it, because obviously just because I didn't see the trailer doesn't mean I didn't see the feedback from the trailer. It seemed awfully negative, which is unfortunate, and we'll talk about my opinion on that a little more at the end. But so they get to this little landing pad thing, and a helicopter with the CRM logo, which I now know stands for the Civic Republic Military. I knew it before this series because of, it's been mentioned, and if you follow a lot of stuff on, Instagram or whatever, they mentioned it before, but it stands for the Civic Republic Military, and we find out that the Civic Republic Military kind of has this alliance with this group at the university, and so, they're there to kind of, see what's up, and you definitely get a really good take on how highly trained the soldiers are. A lot of the soldiers, they're kitted out, they're Splinter Cell kitted out, which is, it seems a little sci-fi, which is kind of unfortunate. They've got these weapons that have robotic knives in them that you see later on in the episode, and all this other stuff that just kind of ridiculous, if I'm being completely honest. And so the Civic Republic military, it must be like a lieutenant or a commander or something. I think it's a lieutenant. Her name's Elizabeth, and they take Elizabeth and her soldiers back to their little university ground. And so, essentially, there's a lot of moments, especially one coming up a little bit after that, where it just seems like very like angsty teenage movie kind of esque. Like when you hear some of them talking, like I feel like I'm almost watching like a Disney Channel movie special or something. Which is, it's not what we're really used to in The Walking Dead. Like, again, we're used to some over the top, some kind of over dramatic, kind of things, but it was pretty bad. The acting wasn't great. In those specific scenes that I'm talking about. And if you watch the episode yourself after watching this, or either before watching this, you'll probably know the moments I mean. Like the speeches and everything were plucked like right out of a crappy teenage movie. But again, that's going to have an effect on my final opinion. But the scenes play a part, so I think they're important. But definitely kind of over dramatize those a little bit. And so you go on to learn a couple things about Iris and Hope and their family dynamic, and so you hear Iris talking about how she's like, essentially she pretty much says outright that she's hoping to find a cure of some sort for the virus, which obviously that would not be easy to do. So you can kind of tell the kind of person she is, and it kind of pits her and Hope on two different character paths. Like in one scene you're hearing Iris talk about how she wants to stop the zombie virus, and then I think like one or two scenes later you're seeing Hope, who gets arrested for illegally making I think champagne or some kind of moonshine or some kind of liquor that they don't allow. And so it already starts those two kind of different paths of character development, and there's actually a decent amount of character development for these characters, I find, throughout this episode. But again, more on that a little bit later. So they're celebrating, the reason that CRM is there, you find out, is because they're celebrating a holiday called Monument Day, which is kind of a day to remember everything that the people that are still alive, all the survivors, everything that they lost. And that's why it's called Monument Day, because it's talking about how these communities are a monument and a vision of an old world, and that it's super important to remember everything that they lost and all this stuff. And so you learn that that's what they're there for, and then you learn as well. You see Iris looking through some kind of book that has coded messages on it, and then you see the message coder that she has. I think in her dad's old office. So you find out that her dad was kind of shipped off to the CRM compound, and that he's sending them messages now that he's no longer safe and that things are going bad. And so and they touch on it quite a bit. Like you can tell long up until the end of the episode that they're obviously gonna go find this guy or whatever, but they kind of play it for quite a while. You meet another couple main characters. Elton is a big one, who's probably one of my more liked characters so far, just because he's kind of weird, kind of nerdy. But yeah, so he's probably one of the characters I like the most so far. And then you kind of get into this next scene or these next couple scenes, which are, just, I don't know. It's a good way to show the backstory of some of these characters. Like you see Iris, she goes to a psychiatrist, and she goes and talks about her problems and talks about how she has to open up and all this stuff, which is actually has an effect later in the episode, which is good. And then you meet, also one other interesting thing that I have here in my notes actually is that they don't call them walkers. They call them empties, which is interesting, and I'd like to know why that is. Obviously, empties meaning the person left inside is gone, I would assume is what they're trying to say. But it's definitely interesting to see It's going to be interesting to see how that's going to play out, or how that, like, whether they'll eventually start calling them walkers, or whether that's just not a term that's used. So then, kind of around the same time that Iris is, talking to the psychiatrist, you kind of learn a little bit more about, their life, like, on the day that everything went down. So eventually you learn quite a few things, but again, I'm going to keep that for a little bit later. So, I mean, a lot of the other stuff isn't super important. They finally get a one last message from their father, literally saying things have gone bad. Don't tell anybody, but I'll try to, like, I'm pretty much fighting for my life, or things like that, pretty much. And then there's a couple other scenes in between that, and then you'll see Iris prepared a speech for Monument Day, and she goes up and kind of, gets prepared to talk about her speech, and then she goes off on this whole other tangent and this whole other speech about how she doesn't really trust the CRM, and how they kind of have to live in the now, and all this other stuff, which is, I mean, it was a good speech, but then what happens after is my least favorite part of the entire episode. It is another one of those very, like, angsty teenage movie-esque moments. Like, it's one of those, let's go, we gotta go do this, we can do this kind of speeches that, I don't know if it's just because of the age that this, like, the age group that all the dialogue is from, that's making it feel kind of teenage movie-esque, but yeah, it wasn't great. That scene wasn't great, but obviously, they do decide to go and leave. But before they leave, you get to see, like, kind of the last moments of what happened on the day everything went down. So what happened is Iris and her father, which is also Hope's father, but Iris and Hope's father, they all get separated. So Hope ends up with her mother, and Iris ends up with the father. And the mother gets shot by a pregnant lady. And then Hope, who at this point is, 7, 8, no, older than that, like maybe 11, no. Honestly, 7 or 8 was probably a good guess. So she kills the pregnant lady, which I think is going to have a much bigger part to play in how, like, when they come to unveil why she acts the way she acts, obviously. And then after that is the scene kind of where it almost feels like, it almost felt like I was watching, like, Riverdale or It or anything like that. And, like, Iris, Hope, Elton, and Silas were all just kind of chilling in the father's office. And they all just kind of decide, ooh, let's go. Like, Hope and Iris are like, we're leaving. And Elton's like, well, take me. And Silas is like, yeah, I'm coming too then, I guess. And so they all kind of, they just go. They go out the door. They go out the little side entrance that Elton knew about. And they leave. And then it goes to a scene of Felix and Huck, who we didn't really mention much until now, which is probably my fault. But you see Huck and Felix, and they kind of find out where the kids are going, and they're like, well, we got to go get them. And so they leave the community as well to go and find the kids, obviously, because you don't want 4 kids that are like high school age to be out on their own like that. So they run out to go find them, and we're getting pretty close to the last episode here. The only other notable moment that I really have, well, I have 2 actually. The only other 2 notable moments that I have thus far is the kids, they see their first walker outside of the walls, and I believe Iris is the one that takes the walker out. And then at the very, very end of the episode, you see Elizabeth and the CRM soldiers murdering everybody in the camp of the university. And then Elizabeth is like, where is she, or did you find the girl? And the soldier's like, no, we have no idea where she is, or we can't find her, or whatever. Then Elizabeth says good, and then it kind of zooms out, and boom, credit scene. So I feel like it was about the average length of an episode. Like, I think it was 50 minutes long or so, thereabouts. So pretty much the average length of your usual episode, I'd say. Like, I'd say maybe about 10 minutes longer, but I'm trying to think of a good way to explain how I felt about it, because I feel like I was super negative during my explanation. I think that the angsty teenage movie portions are god awful, but I think that they have enough of a storytelling aspect, and they're few and far between, in my opinion, that you don't really notice them, or you don't really mind them as much, because in the end they're telling a part of at least the ones from this episode. If it continues with that kind of setup, I don't know how it'll be, but in this first pilot episode anyway, it was able to tell a lot of the story, which I think was quite important. But again, I don't know how that's going to be in future episodes, or if it's going to be like that or what. But all in all, though, I think the episode, I'd give it probably, like, if I had to give it a rating 1 out of 10, I'd say like a 7 out of 10. Like, I don't think I've ever rated a Walking Dead episode of any kind below like a 5. Well, that's not true. There were a couple bad episodes, but I'm a big fan of the series, and I pretty much anything that has to do with zombies I'll enjoy, even if it's cheesy and garbage. But I will say that, again, the teenage moments and just some of the acting and some of the way the story's being set up is kind of interesting, but kind of not. I think for me, I guess kind of like the original Walking Dead, and especially Fear the Walking Dead was like for me. It's going to be a lot. It's going to depend a lot on the characters to keep me in it. I think that the playoff of the different dynamics of Hope and Iris is going to be interesting. And I really like Elton as a character, and I think that he has a lot more story to tell. And I like Silas as well, just because he's different, and I quite enjoy that. He's not really any of the characters we've seen before, I don't think. Like, Elton reminds me a lot of Eugene, I think, if I had to quantify him to anybody. Hope reminds me a lot of Nick from Fear the Walking Dead. Just, kind of the rebel, like the young rebel, bad kid, just liquor instead of drugs, like kind of, that path of person. And I'd probably say that Iris is pretty close to Alicia, or someone maybe a little bit more vocal, because she is, yeah, I'd say like maybe Dale or Herschel, which is kind of weird to say that Iris is like them, but very vocal and very, very smart, which is another good asset of hers. But then there's Silas, who is kind of different compared to any other character we've seen before. Like, you don't get to see a lot of him, so I don't know exactly what he's like. But I think, like, it's just that, and I think Huck is a really interesting character, and I think that set of characters is what's really going to have to keep me, is what's really going to keep me in it. It's going to be fun, though, to keep up with all 3 of the series at once. Like, I think this Sunday, they start back up the main series again, and then right after the main series airs, the World Beyond premiere airs. Then the week after that, I think, is when Fear the Walking Dead starts. So, yeah, and I've been rewatching all the Walking Dead episodes just in preparation. So I'm hoping that by the time the new episode comes out on Sunday, I'll be at least done the main series of The Walking Dead, and that way I can spend a little bit of time doing Fear as well before it re-premieres. So, yeah, I mean, like I said, I'd say a solid 7 out of 10 for this episode. It had its low points, but it also had its really high points. I think the way they ended off the episode really saved it too, because you now get this feeling like you want to know more. Well, everybody wants to know more about the CRM, and I think that's another one of the saving graces of this series, is that after you see them take Rick and all this other stuff, like after you see all the things they've done, you've seen the signs for them in every single series thus far, you want to know more about the CRM. And So I think it's going to be interesting to see. I really, really, really hope they were just playing around with us, and there is a Rick Grimes appearance in the show. Like, I want Rick to appear back in the main series so bad, but I'm honestly going on one of the longest tangents that doesn't even pertain to this episode of Walking Dead World Beyond. So again, back on focus. Decent episode, pretty good. Again, I would like to start doing more of these. Obviously, this is my first time ever doing anything like this. So again, your feedback on like how I should do it the next time, or what I should add or what I should take away the next time. Whether you guys want to see more of this, anything Walking Dead related, I will do. I will play the Telltale game. I'll go back and get the old Survival Instinct, and I'll play that. I'll react to anything, like any moments in any of the series, or I'll react to any episodes or whatever. Obviously, gaming's still a big part of this channel, and it probably will be the main focus. But for those of you that are on this channel already, or for those of you that are coming in from as new viewers, if this is the kind of content that you want to see, I can definitely start doing this regularly, and I would love to start doing it regularly, because besides gaming, The Walking Dead has definitely been a big part of my life. I've been watching it for a long time, and I've watched it a lot. I think this is my 7th or 8th for sure, probably more, run through of the show. At this point, I just sit and recite the script instead of actually paying much attention, but obviously there's some episodes that I haven't watched as many times, because like once you watch an episode like 3 or 4 times, especially the bad ones, you just have to skip them. But yeah, I've seen every episode at least 2 or 3 times, and most of them 6 or 7 times or 8 times. So yeah, I really hope you guys enjoyed this episode of whatever I'm going to call the series, whatever I'm going to call this video, or whatever. But yeah, I really hope you guys enjoyed this episode, and as always, we'll see you in the next one. Peace out, guys.